is centered around the exchange rate. And you realize that when the cedi performs well, it feeds into every single economic indicator. So last year, 2025, we started the year in June. We were around 30.7% for the inflation figures. It dwindled 12 months consecutive. By March 2026 this year, we were around 3.2%, and we are now edging up again. We are now at 5.3% for the inflation figures. But it all had to do with the exchange rate. So I did some correlation analysis, and we had a strong positive correlation between the movement of the exchange rate and the inflation rate. And it's no rocket science, because you look at our imports bill, you look at where we import our products from, and realize that importation driven inflation constitutes about 38% of the entire headline inflation. So anything that triggers the exchange rate has a rippling effect on the inflation figures. And also, you're looking at the current tension, the global tension, that's affecting crude oil prices. You know, the ex-refinery prices constitute about 61% of our ex-pump prices, right? So when we have the fuel also constituting about 10% of our inflation baskets, transport and all. So when prices of fuel spikes, then inflation also spike. And inflation is also another interesting parameter, because it also feeds into the policy rate. And the policy rate, yesterday, the government, through the Bank of Ghana, the MPC board, they met and they pegged it at 14%. And it's the policy rate that was also determining the lending rate. And the lending rate will also determine how much you pay as interest on any loan that you are going to take from the banks. And the policy rate will also have a rippling effect on economic growth, because when borrowing cost is lower, meaning a lot of business can go onto the financial or to the banking markets to get more credit facilities, invest into their businesses, expand the businesses, grow their outputs, employ more, and it will hike. So they have to have a strong appreciation of all these mechanisms before you peg the policy rate as well. We started the policy rate from somewhere 28% in June 2025. Right. Currently, we are doing 14% because the inflation figures became relatively lower, so we were able to reduce our policy rate. But one important aspect or indicator that is catching my attention had to do with our debt levels. Currently, as I speak to the last debt bulletin we have from the Ministry of Finance, it stood at, our total debt stood at 720.8 billion Ghana cedis, right? 720.8 billion. Then the external component of it was 341.7 billion cedis, and the domestic component was 379.1 billion Ghana cedis. So I traced the trend of the external debt and realized that the external debt kept on increasing. It increased from just this year, it was 322 billion in January. It went to 326 in April. Between February and March, there was a slight decline because of the servicing of some of our debts and the appreciation of the cedi again. That's why the cedi is very important, because when the cedi also appreciates, you reduce the external components of your debt. So that's a very important measure. So going ahead, that's the general picture of the economy. So the credit agencies, Fitch and other credit agencies have graded Ghana has projected that Ghana's economy will remain relatively stable. We will not, unless there is an external shock, but you never know. We don't know the direction of the government. We don't know what special policy initiative they are going to embark on. And my even trigger the current state of the economy or the general picture as we have it, Mawena.
And that's an important way for us to start, right? In terms of laying the premise as to what some of these data points mean and how it translates directly into every Ghanaian's life, and then sector by sector as well. Let's begin to look at what the numbers say. Right, sector by sector.
Okay.
In terms of what we've seen from the budget this year.
Okay.
And try and see if there's some work that's been done. Then I'll come to you, Kay, as well, because I see you've put together a few more details as well in relation to the budget statement. So, Wisdom, I'll start off with you, and then I'll come to Kay as well, so that we can take that one after the other.
So I'll begin with the energy sector. And you know the energy sector is like the oxygen of the economy. Everything is powered by energy. So from the 2026 budget, the major policy directions or the policy initiative mentioned was that government will develop a framework for the accelerated deployment of a second gas processing plant called the Ghana Gas Processing Plant, GPP2. And also, government to commence the construction of 1,200 megawatt state-owned thermal power plant. And I will explain why. This is very important. I was looking through the Energy Outlook report for 2026. Mawena, you know what has happened? Ghana is actually spending 8 times more for the fuel they use to power their thermal generators than before, because gas supply has really declined. We were relying on WAPCO for our gas supply, and there were issues, and our consumption has also increased, right? So we had to rely on HFO, which is the liquid-based portion of the fuel to power our thermal plants. So these IPPs, independent power producers, are relying on this heavy fuel, and it is relatively expensive compared to the gas, the light one, the light
crude oil.
Yes. So it is very important. I don't know the state of completion of this processing plant too, and they have to give us an update on it. Where has it gotten to? Have there been any investments made? Or are the long-term structural contingency plan that has been drawn ahead? So there's an update that needs to be given on this particular project. And for the 1,000 megawatt, we used to export power to our neighboring countries. Remember in 2025, Mawena, you were there when we were having a discussion about Sonabel, where the Burkina Base also, we had to cut the exportation of power to them because locally we were not even able to meet peak demand. So that's a very good initiative, but as to whether it has started the state of completion,
the gas processing plants, what I remember is that the last time of check, the finance minister and the energy minister were having conversations as to funding, because it's supposed to cost some $500 million.
Yes, $500 million.
$500 million in terms of how much the gas processing plant was going to cost. I haven't gotten a word or an indication as to the amounts being ready, and for allocations going through. But it will be one of the many important questions which will be asked today when we do appear in Parliament for that conversation. A bit unfortunate that the energy minister himself might not directly be around today, because there are other engagements which have taken him outside of the jurisdiction as we speak. Right. I know that on good word because of some other matters we've been following up on.
Definitely.
So he might not necessarily be, but the Deputy Energy Minister, I suspect, will be around. And so, as and when we get him, we can ask specific questions on this. But let's go on the other matters sectors, so that we can do that quickly.
Okay, the next sector is the health sector. And the government said they will commence the processes towards the construction of 6 new regional hospitals for the 6 newly created regions, beginning with the 3 hospitals in 2026. So they'll begin with 3. and they will complete 6 within the medium term. Government to commence the processes towards the construction of 2 district hospitals at Bole and Shama, and government to complete 10 of the abandoned Agenda 111 hospital projects. Mawena, yesterday I did a story on this particular project, and we heard from the Minister of Health, Akando, saying that 4.8 billion Ghana cedis has been invested. You know, when this new administration came, they channeled most of the Alpha funds into Big Push. They had to amend the PRMA Act to allocate 95% of Alpha to Big Push, the annual budget funding amount from our petroleum revenues. So now, PIAC actually warned that that particular decision will affect the Agenda 111 funding. Last year, President Mahama met clergy, and he proposed that if this faith-based organization can take part in equipping these Agenda 111 hospitals and they will manage it for them, he's on board to come, and they'll have a talk on that as well. So on this Agenda 111 hospital, it is most dear to my heart because remember what happened to Emisa, Charles Emisa, when there was this no bed syndrome, the whole issue about doctor to patient ratio, issue about our health infrastructure. Just last week, the Ghana infrastructure scorecard, it scored our health infrastructure very low by the engineers, Ghana engineers institutions. They said our infrastructure deficits, our infrastructure, the state of our infrastructure, they graded us actually 57%, which is not really good. That's very weak, and we need to improve on that. So we need an update on the 10 Agenda 111 hospitals. Which hospitals have been selected? What are the states of completion? Are the contractors on site? Are they actually embarking on revitalizing these hospitals? Apparently, Akando told us that they actually sent a plant to commission it. They commissioned it, and they removed the plant from site and locked these hospitals. So we want an update on Agenda 111 hospital. Let me continue. He said government to continue the abandoned projects. 1, La General Hospital, Efia Nkwanta Hospital in the Secondary Takrady Metropolis, Konfanochi Maternity Block, and Ashanti Regional Hospital in Sewa as well. And government to upgrade 7 hospitals to provide enhanced maternal and child health services. So these are the health sector initiatives as well. And we move on to infrastructure. So this 2026 budget said that they will commence the construction of a new Accra-Kumasi Expressway. And the expressway will be a new alignment, commence the construction of the Echiaman from Adoso Bridge, and government to construct 1,000 kilometers of agricultural enclave roads over a 3-year period from 2026 to 2028, and that this project will be funded by the World Bank. And you continue with all the big push projects, embark on 30 billion implementation of the big push in that order. And about this infrastructure promises also, they want to have the 8,000 units in the Sagleme affordable housing project to be made habitable in 2026. This particular promise, the Sagleme project, has it been any funds dedicated to them? What is the state of complete? Is it being made habitable as they promised? They have to answer to that as well. The next sector I will talk about is the transportation sector. This is also important to me because, Marina, you remember last year, there were this conversation about our traffic situation, how long it takes us to get car from the major city, the central business districts of Accra to maybe Medina, the intra-city travels. And the whole signaling was that we are going to bring 300 buses, and that these 300 buses will help elevate this stress, the traffic stress, the travel time, and elevate us from the transportation issues that we were facing at the time. The Minister for Government Communications came out with a post on social media that 100 buses came in. We were all happy that, okay, we are at least they are going to solve the intermittent transportation issues.
That's been taken to other parts of the country.
Yes, now they are using it for intercity. I mean, I feel the signaling, the messaging was not clear. We thought it was for intra-city. You only came out, Metromax came out to tell us that it is for intercity. There should be clarification. We want answers on that as well. And for the defense sector, they said that in the route tooling of the Ghana Air Force, government will begin the procurement and process and acquisition of 4 modern helicopters. I saw one from Airbus that just arrived recently, 1 long-range aircraft and 1 medium-range aircraft. I think that is a 4-year period. Yeah, it has a 4-year period. Aircrafts are not sold like cars, you know. Then, under the Land and Natural Resource Initiatives, some of the promises made that all importers of excavators, this is in relation to Galamsey, are now required to obtain approval prior to shipping from the Ministry of Transport. Government to invite interested private sector partners to collaborate in reclaiming 10,000 hectares of degraded land. What is the state of this promise? The Land Commission will also retain 100% of internally generated fund. I checked their IGF. They have not published their PBC program-based budget for 2026 yet in the Finance Ministry, so I don't have updates on that particular percentage. I would have given that to you. Then we move on to the education sector, and that would be the last but one.
I was going to say you round up for me on education. Then I go to K as well, because he's put up a brief data points in relation to a look ahead today. So finish with me on education, then K will come in. Then I can introduce Dr. Julius Carter has joined us in studio as well. Then we can begin a bit more in terms of the conversations as well.
So under education, the government has secured actually 60 million USD from the Chinese government for the construction of a science and technology university at Damango. So they wanted to construct science and technology university at Damango. What's the state of that? The Catholic University of Science and Technology in Damango will also be set up in partnership with the Catholic Church, and 2 new technical universities will be established in Jasikan and Techiman. What is the state of that as well? Government to establish 2 public universities in Kintampo and Dambai. What is the state of that as well? In terms of the capital expenditure aspect, 200 new junior high schools will be built, 200 new primary schools, 200 new kindergartens, 400 4-unit teacher bungalows, 400 places of convenience in underserved communities. And they also promised to gradually phase out the double track system under the free SHS program as well. So that's a general picture of the sector by sector promises that were made in the 2026 budget.
And we'll be seeking to track them.
We will track them.
Track them when the update is provided by the finance minister. Stay with me, Kay. I'm going to come to you now, because I know that there's been some work as well done in relation to this mid-year budget review. Walk us through those details as well briefly. Then Dr. Carter, who is a government rep, will begin to provide us with a bit more in terms of some detail as well. He's an economist, by the way, and he speaks for the NDC as well. So, Kay, let me come to you now.
Yes, Mawina. I think I want to look at it from a macroeconomic dashboard perspective for a ledger of facts. And we'll be looking at the indicator budget benchmark for November 2025. And then the latest position, that's July 2026, and a ledger verdict. You know, the facts don't lie. So if we look at our GDP growth as an indicator, I'll be taking it line by line.
Line by line.
So for our GDP growth, the budget benchmark for November 2025 was 4.8% for 2026. The latest position now is 6.4% in Q1 of 2026. Full year 2025 growth was 6.0. So that is ahead of target. Our non-oil growth, at least 4.9%. For the full year result pending for sector level data is required. So for that verdict, it is not yet testable. For inflation, 8% as of November, the benchmark at end of year within 8%, and currently at 5.3 in June 2023, rose by 1.6%. points from May. So that's a major improvement as well. Then we look at the policy rate, cautious monetary easing where stability permits. That's 14% down from 21.5% at the budget reading. That's a strong reduction. And then the 91-day Treasury bill, lower government borrowing, about 5.70. That's the Bank of Ghana latest figure. That's also a major fiscal relief as well. And then the CD performance. I mean, we're maintaining a strong CD. The latest position is still a strong CD, improved, but it is still exposed. And then we look at the international reserves, at least 3 months of import cover above the minimum benchmark, and that target has also exceeded. So if we look at the positives, growth is above target, inflation is below target, interest rates are falling, the CD and reserves are stronger, but the reality is that lower inflation does not mean prices have returned to previous levels. And a stronger CD remains dependent on fiscal discipline, exports, gold earnings, and credible FX management. The civic question would be that can Ghana preserve these gains when import demand rises, government spending accelerates, and commodity conditions become less favorable? Then on the fiscal and debt ledger, if we look at our primary balance, commitment basis, surplus of 1.5 of GDP, that's a strong early year performance as compared to, if we compare to the full half year result pending, compared to annual target of 1.5 of GDP. So we are ahead so far. Revenue and grants increase in revenue to 16.8% of GDP. That's about 268.1 billion Ghana cedis, and that's below program in Q1 of 2026. Actual data collection versus prorated target exclude one-off receipts, and so that's underperforming if we look at our revenue and grants. For total expenditure, 18.9% of GDP. That's about 302 billion Ghana cedis, significantly below program in Q1. That was 29.2% below target. So actual expenditure versus prorated target, discipline or delay, we will have to answer that. And then we look at the capital expenditure, infrastructure-led transformation and job creation, they say, about 42% below program 1 as well. And actual capex and prorated target is a major weakness. If we look at our interest payments, we reduce debt service burden below program level in Q1 as well. That's a positive fiscal gain. And so for our fiscal and debt ledger, if we look at the positives, debt to GDP ratio has fallen sharply. Interest costs have declined. Fiscal balances appear stronger. Commitment controls and reforms are being implemented. But the reality is that nominal debt has increased. Revenue is below target despite growth. Expenditure undershoot is driven mainly by delayed capital projects, and strong fiscal numbers can hide unpaid commitments and arrears. And then the forensic finding, government may be winning the deficit battle partly because capital projects are not moving at the speed promised.
And that's a very important point, right?
Yeah.
Capital projects, because we're not seeing a lot of capital expenditure coming through. I think we were doing some work yesterday as well. You realize that on the capital side, releases, particularly for the first quarter, had not been so great. I'll work to get the numbers on that as well, but kindly proceed as well.
Yes, so we look at the jobs, business and economic transformation. I'll just go straight to the positive, the reality and the forensic finding. I mean, sometimes reading these numbers can be a bit...
for the ordinary
yes.
Ghanaian, it can be a bit...
So, to the positive, the reality, and then the forensic finding, I think that would be quick. So, for the positives, in terms of jobs, business, and economic transformation, growth above target is improving business confidence. Interest rates and treasury yields have fallen sharply. Major programs and projects have entered implementation, and the 24-hour economy is gaining traction with private sector, some traction with private sector. The reality is that unemployment remains high at 13%. That's the latest available. Youth unemployment is the biggest structural challenge. Credit is not flowing to SMEs at affordable rates, and announcements and projects are not yet verified jobs and wages. The forensic finding is that Ghana has produced evidence of economic growth and policy action. It has not yet produced equally strong evidence of employment absorption, affordable credit, industrial shifts, or completed infrastructure delivering real socio-economic gains. And then we look at the People's Economy and Accountability test. For the cost of living, inflation is significantly lower than budget target. Prices remain high relative to household incomes. Real income growth above inflation, that's partial relief. Food insecurity, what remains unresolved, 38.1% of households remain food insecure. And then we look at poverty. Some poverty indicators have improved. 21.9% multidimensionally poor by Q3 of 2025, still unacceptably high, improving but high. And then household income, GDP growth and stability should raise purchasing power. No clear 2026 real income recovery ledger available. So the benchmark test here would be real income growth and wage gains outpace inflation. And then we look at bank lending. Policy and treasury rates have fallen sharply. We look at the public projects. Major infrastructure promises exist in the pipeline. Kilometers completed, payments made, and jobs created. That should be the benchmark test. Delivery is uncertain. We haven't seen much. So if we look at the promises sustained substantially on track, GDP growth above target, inflation control significantly better, policy rate and treasury rates lower, CD stability strengthened, international reserves above minimum, and debt to GDP ratio improved sharply, interest payments decline. Promises not yet proven, employment creation and youth jobs, affordable private sector credit, real household income recovery, 24-hour economy outcomes, big push and infrastructure impact, VAT reform, impact on business, cash flow and prices, and areas of failure that are of concern, revenue mobilization below target, capital expenditure significantly below program, unemployment still high at 13%, like we mentioned, food insecurity at 38.1%, and nominal public debt still rising, project level transparency weak. So the ledger, so to speak, gives an overall score of 6.4 over 10. Recovery is real, transformation is not yet complete.
Beatrice, I'm going to come to you before I go to Doc on what you have as well in terms of expectations. I know you've mentioned a bit on that already, but in terms of all of the numbers crunching which has come from two of the guys, yes, take it home for us in simple terms, right? Then I'll go to
yes,
I'll go to
I was listening to all those specific figures for the various areas. Quite interesting, but again, at the end of the day, we're looking at the bigger picture. You remember that when Dr. Ato Forson stood before us in Parliament, he talked about 268.1 billion in terms of revenue target and expenditure of 302.5 billion, all in Ghana cedis. And again, I go back to what we witnessed in 2022 when we had inflation 54% and our currency was rated as the worst, even before the currency in India. And then we also experienced like really a lot of difficulties. The reason was that we spent more than we had. We borrowed more than we were supposed to. And so it still goes back to the conversation of how we are managing our resources. I've heard a number of experts talk to us about, yes, in the last 6 months, we've been able to retain some stability on the front of the city, among others. But how we spend and how we discipline ourselves will determine how the next half of the year would be. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the finance minister on the revenue target. I just heard Tekujo talk about the fact that we are not mobilizing enough, and that has been one of our major problems because we tend to spend more than we are able to generate or mobilize locally. So we should be able to work on that. Hopefully these are just figures because we don't really have the internal numbers that he may have, because he would have all the briefings from all the sectors. So he should be able to tell us that in terms of revenue mobilization, if we're doing 40%, in the last 6 months, we've done about 60%, which would be an improvement. So I'm looking forward to getting a lot more improvement on our progress, how we're spending, how we're saving, and really the way forward to ensure that we don't go back to the old days when we've really put ourselves in such a messy, difficult situation.
Appreciate you as well. That's Beatrice Edu, is my colleague here at Media General 3FM, as well as TV3. So is Wisdom Safo with our research desk, and Kekujo is my colleague here on the show as well. Dr. Julius Carter is an economist. He's joining us in the studio. He's been with us for quite some time. He's been listening in to the guys as they've been running through the details. Doc, appreciate you as well for joining. In summation, I don't know if summation is the right way to put it.
In summary, maybe.
Yes, and with a bit more in terms of government's position, right? What would you say Ghanaians should look forward to when the finance minister does come around a lot later this afternoon? Then I'll begin to go a bit more into the numbers.
For the expectation.
Yes, expectation.
Okay. Thank you very much once again, my brothers and sisters in the studio, yourself, and I would like to take your platform once again, as usual. Speaking from the NDC perspective, I would like to send my sincere greetings to the whole NDC fraternity, the brothers and sisters who are doing well to sustain and build Mother Ghana, led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Kudos in the first place. Going forward, I would like to also congratulate Honorable Ato Forson for the tactical economic inferences that he's using to propel the economy. We are so far on course with the fiscal discipline policies. We are so far on course with even at the micro level, you realize that there is some form of comfort, fair comfort among Ghanaians when you speak to an individual in the market, an individual in Totro or in taxi. The reflection of the economy is what we have to look at the micro level, not at the macro level, because individual Ghanaians have individual problems, and individual problems, they constitute what we call the macroeconomic of Ghana. So those indicators we mentioned, they down there may not really understand some of the figures we are bringing out. But as an economist and a teacher of economics, I need to break down, come down to the Kenke Seller level to look at the input the Kenke Seller has to use to produce that goods, and how the person generates revenue, how the assemblies go around to collect their tax, how those taxes have been put into use, and how Ghanaians will feel the impact of the tax is being collected, the tax that is being collected. Those are the responsibility of an economist. So I want to assure Ghanaians that on the part of government, we are committed to stand tall in the economic recovery pedestal and stability and sustained growth in the budget. The minister is then going to confirm this in the budget. Talk about inflation, interest rate, and exchange rate. I will say that there will still be the responsibility to maintain stability in all these indicators.
Doc, whilst you're on, as much as you're educating, right, and you're helping us appreciate what is coming, if we could make it easier on the ear for a lot more of the listeners as well. So when we say stability, in that sense, what are we looking at? And when the government is looking at stability based on what the Ghanaian has seen since last year, what does stability mean?
Stability means that you should be, first of all, honest with your projections. What you project for Ghanaians, you must be honest with yourself. You must maintain a low expenditure. When we say stability, it simply means that you balance yourself in such a way that you don't do things above normal, things that will cause decay, things that will give problems to the economy. You are being fair to yourself, the truths of what you are doing, so that everybody will live in comfort. Not somebody somewhere just increasing prices of goods. Not somebody somewhere who has monopolized the dollar. Not somebody somewhere or government trying to pose a position where he's always borrowing excessively. No. We need to live in equilibrium. For instance, the next cafe I'm taking on this table, if I take, instead of taking just 1 spoon, I took about 5 spoons, it will cause health hazard to me. But if I take 1 spoon a day, it will minimize the cause of its effect in my body. That is stability. Simple. The only thing you can take in this world that does not have any effect is water. Water, but the body is made up of water. So with that one, when you take it, you'll be urinating. So that one, there's no stability in it.
You are not like you choke on it. That's another thing.
Yes. But for this economy, it's so organic in such a way that it has life. If you don't balance it, somebody, your calculations could affect somebody somewhere to the fact that the person will be crying. So we need to balance. So, my host, that let me go on.
Right.
Now, when we talk about inflation, everybody say inflation. The ordinary Ghanaian in the market doesn't know, he doesn't understand inflation. It is more money that you use in buying only one goods. So Oscar dodo a wobenya eto ade bako pe onu na ye problem enti uko market na ochina price na increase ochina chi uko na price na cost. That is what we are talking about. But if the government is able to control the system, price no jina at one place, then we can achieve a total goal. So there will not be too much inflation. Exchange rate. It is because Ghana's economy, we have a taste for foreign goods to the extent that our local goods, we don't take good care. We don't appreciate it. It is time for us to realize that the white man who produces goods and bring to us, when we go and buy the goods, we send the foreign currency to them, and it goes back to their country. So we have to reduce the level of our taste and preference. What we want and what we eat, we need to control it. We need to produce locally. And that is why, at the back of this government, when we made mention of 24-hour economy, all Ghanaians have accommodated it. But then, we need to do more to build the industries. We need to do more to engage youth employment. Now, in doing all these micro indicators, there's one very important thing that it is so highly important is employment. The employment figures we are seeing now are not very encouraging. 13%. Yeah. The reason being that you could talk about controlling inflation, you hold inflation as a constant. You hold exchange rate as constant.
Yeah.
You hold, how do we call it, interest rate as constant. But if the figures of unemployment fluctuates, and it's going up, it's going higher, what will happen is that it's also called human inflation.
Human inflation?
Yes. The reason simple. The reason why I term it as an economist, I term it as human inflation is that government would have to raise money to build factories at a higher cost. Government will have to increase sources of programs. You have to get programs that will fit into the youth employment. Yeah. It becomes expensive. It costs. It's so price worth that if you don't take time, government can, over the years, government is not able to feed that problem because we are piling it. The 200 and something thousand graduates that come from the university sometimes, every year.
Yeah.
What happened? It's a problem, and you may see it as a joke. I'm using a phrase that you think that it is not in the dictionary. It is not in the dictionary of economics, but there's human inflation, and it's that time we should know. Indirectly, government will have to suffer hugely to build industry, and look at the capital that 24-hour economy is looking for to invest into government employment and to create industry.
Is that also 4 billion?
Yes. So that's not a joke. And seriously, if we have to tackle the youth unemployment and control everything, it goes with other things. So I will not say that we are safe yet, but we need to work harder as a government. Then I will look at fiscal discipline. The fiscal discipline, yes, we have created, there will be a passing of legislation covering, an instrument covering the fiscal council, fiscal discipline to come out very soon. I'm sure my government will announce it in Parliament today. And that is also an area that we seriously have to look at. And those who are in charge for that and who may be in charge going forward must be serious-minded people. And I will stand here as a technocrat to tell my government as well that we need serious-minded people to handle that aspect of the economy.
People with high integrity.
With high integrity, with high responsibility. They are ready to carry the tasks. The task is huge, but we have to carry it. But I believe, with where I stand, I can assure Ghanaians that the NDC government, led by John Dramani Mahama, we will definitely be on task to do it. And we will definitely deliver and will not disappoint Ghanaians. Last but not the least, the roadmap is clear that from now up to the end of the year, we are going to stand tall in maintaining fiscal discipline, micro stability, and continuing to look at unemployment issue. That is also a target we have to look at because it can cause inflation.
Right. Doc, at the risk of not sounding repetitive, right, there appears to be over-concentration on fiscal discipline greatly. It's affected capital expenditure and some other key indicators in terms of how well things translates in the betterment of lives for the ordinary Ghanaian. And I'm going to cite an example in terms of the 2026 budget specific, the first quarter. We targeted overall expenditure at 78.8 billion cedis for the first quarter. By the time we assess releases, you realize that on the capital expenditure side, we saw the biggest non-releases, at least as compared to arrears clearance for contractors. That those two, right, did not see releases in the manner and volumes as expected. So for the first quarter, we were hoping to spend 12.6 billion on capital expenditure. As at the time, end of March, because January to March is first quarter, we had spent, or we released 7.3, meaning some 5.3 billion was not released. I take us back to first quarter because that's where we've seen the data. And I'm using that to buttress the point that isn't there an over-concentration on fiscal discipline such that the spending, we're not seeing it? And it's become a criticism as well from the opposition. They say you are using cosmetic means to keep the books balanced whilst you're not spending and persons are not seeing the money flow.
It is because, let me tell you something, it is because when they were in power,
3FM.
the abnormal spending that they have done per the books, if I tell you that if you take over a government and you don't go back to take stock of what is there, you will make a mistake when you start releasing money. And what they want us to do as non-accountants, they want to put us into the position as non-accountants.
How so? How do you mean?
That means that they want to let us not be accountable to what they have done. It is not to check them. It is not to say that they've done bad things. But you have to look into the criticality of those payments you're going to release to the contractors.
But the audit has been done.
Please, audit can be done. But vis-a-vis, you the one put in charge to spend public purse, need to do verifications. And those verifications were part of the things that Honorable Ato Forson is doing. And those verifications that he's doing is what the findings are, the things that are not allowing certain releases to be made. We must get that clear. Because the fact of the matter is that public funds that you sign to, if there are distortions in payments of public funds, you'll be held responsible.
Yeah.
And you must be careful. And he's being careful.
Yeah. I think, Mawina, to add to
I don't think
point,
that it's prudent for me. Excuse me, I'm coming. It's prudent for me to be put in charge of finances as an economist, to just start releasing because my predecessors have made certain commitments and I just have to get the books and say, oh, I'm paying. Yeah. What is the guarantee that those contracts or those jobs are being done, that the procurement processes and everything is done properly? This is not about vindictism. It's about accuracy. You are accountable to the taxpayer. I had the finances. Ubekum.
She's meticulous.
Okay, you had wanted to make an interjection.
Yes, I was saying, I mean, I had times call for hard measures. And if you look at where we are coming from as a country, and even where we are, as much as, I mean, in my local parlance, we say, epokra togum. So Oliver Twist, I mean, we will always ask for more because more is not bad. You know, enough is good enough. But we are asking for more because we want to see Ghana get better. We want to see Ghana move beyond aid. We want to see a Ghana that's self-sustaining. And in achieving that, it's only important that fiscal discipline is exercised in its highest form. If we look at where we were coming from, or where we are coming from, if you look at the data, the numbers, and you compare, I think you'll appreciate that it's only important that the gatekeepers of our finances, are a bit more strict, are a bit more meticulous, are a bit more forensic in interpreting, auditing, and disbursing. I think those are very important points we have to note, because if we look at where we are coming from, I would say again, and where we are now, one would call it a miracle. Not the kind of miracle that...
I beg you.
Yes, I know. The moment Mawina heard me saying miracle, he knew I was probably going to drop a punchline.
Yes,
but I mean, we would call it a miracle, and this is a positive miracle. This is a one that is ought to be celebrated, because Mawina, you and I were in Ghana some few years ago, or some few many months ago, when the dollar reached dollar to cedi reached that peak. It affected a lot of businesses, even small startups within the commodity, agro-commodity space, had to let go of employees, reduce operational capacity and things like that. So we know where we were. And to find ourselves, do you remember where inflation was? So to find ourselves where we are today, we ought to commend the government for doing an awesome job. Opposition is important. They are a necessary ingredient to our democracy. They are the guardrail of the republic. They are supposed to keep government on their toes. But it's also important that they are not just a bunch of noisemakers. It's important that they do their work meticulously. It's important that they do their work comprehensively, and not just reject everything that comes just because they are opposition. We want a Ghana where opposition can admit that, look, this is where we were and this is where we have come to. You are doing very well, but we think this is where you can improve. Those are the kind of conversations we want to hear. Not an opposition that just rejects everything because they are an opposition, I think that's a point I wanted to add to what
Dr.
Doc said.
Wisdom, I'm going to come to you now on a bit more on what Doc has been saying as well.
Yeah, so Mawina, I heard Doc very well, and I understand the enthusiasm, the zeal and the fire in him, and you can understand. But there's a school of thought that's saying that this government is more about economy, the inflation, the figures, the economic indicators, but they are not paying attention to the social issues. They are not really paying attention. Actually, the philosophy of the NDC has been a socialism. They are a socialist party, but the NPP, we know, is a capitalist-minded party. They started with social intervention. You can talk about that one later. But he mentioned the spending aspect that you brought in. I'm glad he's an economic professor, a teacher in economics, because I did economics too. The little economics I did was that when you're calculating GDP, you add the C plus the G, which is the government expenditure, plus the I, which is the investment, and you add the net import. Right?
Economics class.
Now, the G component, which is the government expenditure, is what you are talking about, because it also adds to economic growth. Now, the distinction is this: where you spend is more important than how much you spend. It's very important. I was looking through the expenditure chart. I realized that interest payments alone, was about 57 billion Ghana cedis for in the budget. Interest payments on our debts alone, and it's one of the highest budget items from the list.
Interest payments?
Yes, on our debts. Debt repayment that has been restructured for the medium term. If you look at the budgetary allocation that was made for it, it was one of the biggest expenditure items from the 2026 budget.
Okay.
Yes. Now, if you look at the capital expenditure, they say they are not spending. If you look at the capital expenditure, it was 12.6, as you mentioned. But take note, big push was not added to the capital expenditure. If you add the big push allocation of 30 billion Ghana cedis, it raises the capital expenditure in the medium term to 42.6 billion Ghana cedis in that regard. But I'm not talking about the headline, the macro figures. I want what is happening in our lives. Let's talk about one issue, which is the flood. For me, I think it's one of the major social issues that the government has to respond to and invest as much as it can, because it's really detrimental. There was a World Bank report that was recently released, and it was saying that because of fiscal measures, and its fiscal measures meaning revenue expenditure, they were cutting down on expenditure, and the finance ministry was kind of regulating the withdrawal from the Garrett fund. And as I speak to you, the housing minister went to parliament to say that even the contracts on the Garrett project had been terminated, and they had to even review to see whether the exploration analysis is still valid.
It's terminated because the previous government was taking money from that coffers as and when they don't prudently use the money for the infrastructure development projects. Simple. And they have ballooned the debt, the collection of that money from that account. They have ballooned the debt. Look, let me tell you something. You are talking about flood. The big push construction of road we are doing, do you know that the gutters under the roads are being rebuilt? Are you aware? It's part of solving the problem. 2, if you have a fiscal infrastructure program like the way we did, if the previous government had done much on that, we won't be where we are. Beautification of the city, what happened to it? A complete failure for the 8 years. What happened? You were in Ghana, you saw it. What happened to the Odona? Where that money was in somebody's bedroom.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. I mean, it shows clearly that we are not serious in this country. Yeah. And when we take over, and we are pushing, I was part of the policy manifesto draft in education, but we cut across each sector. We discuss within ourselves across each sector. What happens is that if you look at what MPP has done to this mother Ghana, I think if this F will swallow them, they will go inside.
Look, let's we have to go just briefly, but quick final thoughts from you, Wisdom, and then Kay and Beatrice as well, because Doc appears to have rounded up for us. Just briefly,
Mawena, I will just say one thing: politicians must be committed to serve the people that voted them into power. It's not about putting out the figures to look good in front of opposition and make your point. The real thing is that what are the pertinent issues that is affecting your people? What are the things that if you invest in, you reap a substantive benefit? That is what we have to talk about. It's not about, you see, what is the essence of good physical monetary indicators, and your people are not safe, they are not healthy, they are not economically sound? It makes no economic sense. Right. So for me, it's about commitment, and this budget reading must show that commitment to the people.
Right, thank you. That's Wisdom. Safo with our research desk. Kay, you have the final word before we run out of the studio this morning.
In fact, my final word, I will touch on the macroeconomic story and then the microeconomic story. Inflation has fallen dramatically, we know. The cedi is stronger. Interest rates have fallen sharply. GDP growth has accelerated. Debt ratios have improved. Government finances are healthier, and investor confidence has improved. These are facts. And then we look at the microeconomic story. food is still expensive compared with 2 years ago. Many businesses still can't get affordable credit, and many graduates are still unemployed. And household incomes have not improved significantly. Communities are waiting to see more projects completed.
Right.
So these are realities, just so that we're able to balance it out. Because as much as government has done a lot, bringing us from Egypt, and with the promise of taking us to the promised land, we have not arrived. At the promised land, we have not arrived yet.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me in studio this morning. A reminder that we will be live with the media budget presentation by the Finance Minister here on 3FM 92.7, and so stick and stay with us. The coverage will continue for you. But let me just talk to you quickly about the Mervyn Pick, right? Mervyn Pick Ambassador Hotel, and an evening where each course unfolds